Thank you so much. Hi everyone, my name is Vanessa Nakate. I am a climate activist from Uganda, one of the countries that is heavily responsible. Can you hear me clearly now? Yes, I come from Uganda, one of the countries that is on the front lines of the climate crisis. The climate crisis is not a future threat. It is a present reality that is harming so many communities, especially in the global south, which communities are not responsible for this crisis. We know that the African continent alone is historically responsible for less than 4% of the global emissions, and yet so many Africans are already suffering some of the most brutal impacts of climate change. But we also know that countries like the United States is historically responsible for 29% of the global emissions. How can you compare that with Africa, with 54 individual countries, which is just responsible for less than 4%? This is unfair, this is wrong, and this is unjust. When we say that we want climate justice, we're not just talking about transitioning to solar panels. We are talking about leaving no one behind. We are talking about addressing the injustices that come with the climate crisis. We have seen what is happening in countries like Libya. Thousands of people dead, thousands missing, and so many livelihoods destroyed. We've seen in countries like Mozambique, thousands killed because of cyclones and many displaced. We've seen the drought in the Horn of Africa that has left over 20 million people on the brink of starvation. What else needs to be seen for our leaders to understand that we are in a crisis, that we are in an emergency, that they need to start treating this like a crisis? The people that are suffering right now, especially in our communities, many of them don't even know what climate change is, but they can understand the changes in the weather patterns. Many people that are displaced, they don't even know what 1.5 means, and yet the people that know the meaning of these words are continuing to fuel the climate crisis. In 2020, I wrote a letter to President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, and I asked them if they are ready to fight the climate crisis, to stand with the people and the planet. And I told them, all we really want is a future that is equitable, that is clean, that is healthy for all of us. And I asked them, is that too much to ask, where the place we all call home is clean and healthy for all of us? Today, I'm not writing another letter because I believe the last one got lost in the mail. But I have a message, and the message is listen to the communities that are on the front lines of the climate crisis. Listen to the science. The IEA has made it very clear. If we want to have a fighting chance of 1.5, then we cannot have any new fossil fuel investment. But remember, the disasters that I've talked about, they have all happened at 1.2. So meaning even 1.5 is not the ultimate survival. Communities are already suffering and people are already dying right now. And we need a massive scale up of renewables, especially in the global south, where many countries are suffering from energy poverty. We recently had the Africa Climate Summit, and one of the solutions that was so heavily being proposed was the need for carbon markets. But again, these are solutions that are led by the interests of Western countries. We need solutions for our communities, and we have those solutions. solutions that won't leave us behind. My grandmother won't understand what carbon markets are. But if you choose a piece of land and you want to use it for carbon markets, she could lose her home. We shouldn't allow countries, corporations to be given the license to pollute. We shouldn't allow corporations to have the license to destroy our lands, to destroy the air we breathe, and to poison the water that we drink. Enough is enough. We need our leaders to address the climate crisis, and we need them to start now. And that is why today I'm joining the march to end fossil fuels. Because we cannot have climate justice without an end of fossil fuels. We cannot have climate justice if our leaders are constantly talking about addressing the waves but not addressing the wind. Many of them will talk about solutions, but they won't talk about the elephant in the room. And that elephant is fossil fuels that are heavily responsible for the climate crisis. We cannot eat coal, we cannot drink oil, and we cannot have any new fossil fuel investments, and that is coal, oil, and gas. Thank you.